welcome to one more episode of Building Families in the Faith. I am Brian Johnson, and this is my wonderful wife, Rebecca. We're glad you're with us once again. I'd love to hear from you. You can leave your responses or questions, anything down here below. Also love for you to subscribe and hit the like for us as well, so that'd be a blessing to us, and hopefully we are being a blessing to you. As we start today, we're going to go ahead and start reading. The first verse we're going to read is very familiar when a lot of people already have it memorized, but Proverbs chapter 22, starting with verse number 6, and also we'll go into verse number 7. And train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. We all, pastors at least, often refer to this passage or this verse number 6, train up a child in the way he should go. And as parents, we have this great privilege of being able to be the God's instrument to train and mold that child, and give him the information he needs, give him the equipment he needs, give him the tools he needs to be able to serve God and to be able to be what God would have him for the rest of his life. And we have here a principle that when we do our part, that the child will continue going forward. Now, the Catholic Church knows this very well, and they say if you give me your child till 7 years of age, we'll have him for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And it goes to show that it's not when they're teenagers that we're supposed to be developing them or supposed to be training them. It's when they're young. And the younger they are, the better, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Now, of course, we seek ye first the kingdom of God. The spiritual aspects are key and important. But we see here that right after the verse, train up a child, we see that aspect here of borrowing, lending, rich, poor. And we can discern here that the character, a person who does not have character is never going to have that stability of a job, is never going to be able to provide for himself properly, and he's not going to have the character to know to stand on his own 2 feet, not borrow from everybody and all that kind of stuff. So there's a very important part of training up a child of the character portion of their lives as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we did this. There are multiple ways that we can train up a child. There are key principles and key things that we need to develop in the child, but the methodology can change from person to person. We're just going to give you kind of a little rundown of what we did a little bit, and you can gather what's beneficial for you and run with it if you so desire.
Today we're going to talk about what we call the castle of character. Now, we've mentioned many times that we had 3 sons. So obviously castles, knights, swords, this really worked for us.
Plus it was a passion of mine anyway.
Yes.
So.
And it can work for girls as well, but I would make it more of a princessy thing. So let's get down to, let's get down to business about what do we do practically to help teach our children character. So the Castle of Character was the program that we instituted. We instituted this about the time the kids went to school. Before they go to school, it's a little bit too much for them, and we're just trying to get them to obey and not say no. So this is more, we're talking more now, we're into school-age children. Your child is going to kindergarten now. And at this point, I'm talking more like 5-year-old kindergarten, not 4-year-old kindergarten. That's a whole nother beef of mine. But so let's say 5 years old and up, until they got into what we call the knighthood program, which we'll discuss in another episode. But so we decided we needed a method that we could consistently work on character, because consistency is the key to all learning.
Right.
But sometimes in a busy lifestyle, you can forget to be consistent. And so this program was meant to help us. What we did, just a really easy construction paper or colored paper castle, literally just cut out, nothing fancy. We didn't spend a lot of money on this.
Right.
And then images from the internet of things that would attack a castle. So imagine that you had the castle. The castle is the castle of character. Then you had these little enemies, so trebuchets and
catapults, archers.
Yes, all these kinds of things. And we would print them out and kind of cut them out, but at the bottom we leave a white space. And at the bottom we wrote the task that we wanted them to do. For example, make your bed. And then we'd have a value. Make your bed would be maybe 5 play dollars. Then I took the time to make play money, but you know what? These days you can go to the dollar store, you can get play money, and that's what you use. So you make up however many things, whatever, and this included household chores like taking out the trash, doing the dishes, and yes, ladies, I had my boys learn to do household chores like clean, do the dishes, take out the trash,
all that kind of stuff.
Because they need to learn this anyway. You do understand they'll get married someday, and there's a possibility their wife will get pregnant and she'll be on bed rest, and who's going to do all the work if you didn't teach your son to do it? So don't assign a task. This is a masculine task. This is a feminine task. Teach everybody, girls and boys, to do everything.
When we talk about the helpmeet, the wife helping the husband, the husband has to have the discernment there of what he's going to take on himself and what the wife is going to help him to accomplish. Now, we have in society set these roles apart. So the wife does this, this is this. But that's not how it's necessarily supposed to be biblically. It's my responsibility to make sure that everything gets done in the house, whether that's cooking, cleaning, or whatever. Now, I do delegate a lot of that to my wife, especially the cooking. And so, as we're rearing our children, boys and girls, they have to be aware, not aware of they have to know how to do all these things, because it might fall on them, even as a man, to clean. I had a long period of time where my wife was incapable of doing certain stuff because of her health issues, and I thank God that I knew how to do some of it, and my kids, my boys, they helped me with the rest of it. I knew how to do all, but my boys were able to help me to do the cleaning and all this kind of stuff. And so it did in our life. It came a very crucial part for our family, that my wife was not able to, because of her health, do certain things, and that we associate, with a woman, even though that's not necessarily the way it should be.
Right.
So anyhow, going back to little rabbit trail there.
You make a list of things, for example, brushing your teeth, making your bed, picking up your toys, dusting, sweeping, mopping, dishes, trash, you name it, it goes on there. I want to say here, we never paid our children, we're going to come to this, but I just want to side note this, we never paid our children an allowance to do their job, because I didn't want the kids to feel like we owed them.
Right.
So they had to participate in all household chores without an allowance, and I'll explain that here in a minute.
Right, and this program, it's not the obedience portion of it. We've tried to train them to obey prior to this 5-year of age, and these things that are going to be accomplishing, we're setting them, or we've established with each child. Okay, these are your chores, and by doing the chores, they got the money. It wants them to go do this, and if they obeyed, they got the finances. If we had to remind them, or if we had to tell them, it's not part of character, they weren't developing character, they're just obeying, therefore it didn't fall under the payment program here of Castle of Character.
Okay, so what he's saying there, let me just really clarify this. All right, when you start this program, you do have to train them first.
Yes.
So you say make your bed. They're not going to understand how to make their bed.
Right.
So probably for the first 3 months, you're doing every step in the program with them, training. Then it goes to the point, okay, to be honest, a 5 and 6-year-old are not going to remember what's on that list. Remember, when they're 5 and 6, they're just learning to read, so it doesn't necessarily mean they know what's written on your paper. The paper's helping you, Mom, to remember. So then the next part of it is, okay, you've trained them, you've done it with them consistently, then you come in and you do have to say, okay, let's make your bed, brush your teeth. If at that point you've told them to do it and they disobey, they no longer receive the reward at the end of the day, okay? Eventually, when they get to 6, 7, 8, they're going to already be fully trained into the program, and you no longer will have to tell them. You just say, did you do your cast of character today? And they can go look at the wall. By now they're reading quite well. They can read it. They know what they're supposed to do. You've trained them. So you don't just throw this program together and they go, I don't understand. They're not doing it the way I like. Well, duh. You have to, there's steps to it. You have to train. Then you have to help them remember, because you're training. You're forming a habit. Once the habit is formed, they should be able to do it. But at any point along the way, if you've asked them to do something, even if it's on the list, and they disobeyed and they didn't do it, they don't get rewarded. And of course, discipline or correction needs to be applied immediately. Now, the end of every day, yes, this takes a little time, Mom, but it's all right. At the end of every day, we had a habit of, at bedtime, we had a set bedtime that maybe was slightly earlier, and the reason was we went to bed, I read them a story, and you can read any story you want, okay? Some people prefer biographies. I happen to prefer classic literature at night. This is when I chose to do classic literature with my children, and I'd read a chapter, and we would go through. What did you do today? I had an envelope taped on the wall with each kid's name and the play money. And I had a little spiral notebook, just a cheap thing from the dollar store. I had their names, and we would put, okay, did you brush your teeth? Okay, here's your $5 for that. Here's this, here's this. And that would be it for the night. Read their story, sing their song, lights out, bedtime. Now, Saturday was the night that we would then take that envelope. We would count all the money they got. And the other thing we had was a list of prizes. These prizes can range family to family. There's nothing set. We had values, and don't make it realistic, 5 cents for a piece of candy. Make it a little more, so $5 for a piece of candy. But I tried to keep it a little bit healthy. For example, popcorn parties.
You don't want to break
the bank.
Thank you.
Make it cheap.
Yeah, we're developing character, not a love for money. Mm-hmm. So you got to keep that in consideration as well. We're not trying to make them think the work world of if I do all these things I'll be rich. That's not the mentality here. It's the mentality of the character development. And we had a lot of fun things. Some things were probably the most important one to us was family, or not family time, but time alone with Dad. That they could buy, and time alone with Mom they could buy too. So they could, with this money, play money, they could set aside an hour with Dad. Just whatever child purchased this or won this, could set a time, and he'd decide what we did for that hour, and we'd have a fun time. And so it's a character development, and we're not trying to develop here a money loving group of kids.
So at no point was this exchangeable for actual cash.
Right.
As a parent, we took care of everything they needed. Mm-hmm. We took care of, we didn't make them pay for camp. We paid for camp because that's important. We didn't make them pay for their Christian school bill. We paid their Christian school bill because that's important. So these kinds of things, really not as helpful as you might think they are. Pay for it yourself, grow up, pay your bills, and teach your kids other values. So like he said, time with Mom and Dad, popcorn parties, nothing that really would break the bank. Now, if it was something that would be quite expensive, the value would be extremely high. For example, we would have on there, save up money. You could save the play money, and for $5,000, you could go to the zoo. Because the zoo's expensive. Everybody knows the zoo's a fortune. Now, maybe some of you live near a free zoo, but we don't. So things like that. Now, one thing we did do for money is that for 10 play money dollars, you could put $1 towards your college education. And same with savings. We wanted to teach the kids the value of education and saving money for big things. But we really wanted there to be a desire. So when you're asking, what would you like to get in your prize money? Now think about small children, because we're starting this at the age of 5. So you have to use the power of suggestion. So you're nodding your head yes while you say, would you like to put some money into savings? Your head is nodding yes, you're smiling, you have a happy voice, and naturally a child wants to please you and they say, uh-huh. And so you immediately take 10 and note in your notebook, deposit $1 for little Sammy or Julie, because they want to put money away for college and money away for savings. I always started with the savings and the college savings as their first choice.
And make sure you set that apart. Don't leave it in your account.
Yeah, don't lie. We did set up little separate accounts, didn't we?
Yes.
That we would once a month tally up and put the money in, which became very handy by the time they went to college. We're always talking about saving for college, and it's funny how the parents think they need to save, but the child needs to be actively involved in saving and see the value of that education. So when they went to college, we were actually able to hand over a good chunk of money that they had been saving since they were tiny from their little account. And it was something they had done for themselves and money they then had for college. And savings money. Now the savings money we would let them tap into at Christmas, or if there was something very special, then they could get into their savings and they could have money to buy presents for their siblings or daddy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then it felt special that you didn't pay for them to give their Christmas gift. They did it.
They bought it themselves, yeah.
So that is probably the cheapest thing on the list was the savings. And the most expensive thing on the list would have been things that would have cost us money as a family to do.
And we're developing for the zoo prize, like things like that. You're developing a patience with a child. Remember, a 5, 6, 7-year-old doesn't really have a lot of patience. Mm-hmm. So you're teaching them to save, and they're putting that play money aside for the zoo, and they know that they won't get it next month. They know they won't get it 2 months from now necessarily, and it'll be down the road. And they'll be able to go to the zoo. And so we're teaching them the patience aspect there of character. We're teaching them the aspect of saving, not only for college, but for the mentality of, if I'm going to want something larger, I'm going to have to save. And you're instilling in them these character traits that will become very handy for them down the road. Now this program, Castle Character, was, like my wife said, was up till we started knighthood program. So it was basically grade school age. So all this is being instilled in them in their grade school years, as they spend time with mom and dad, as they have popcorn parties. It's not much of it, like my wife said, not much of it was expensive at all, mm-hmm. and it was all fun things. We did have a few things that we'd give out, some candy, but that was not the norm, actually.
Right.
We had other things. Now you figure out what your kids like, you figure out what you as a family enjoy, and you make your prizes around what you enjoy doing, what you enjoy. So what the purpose of it is not money loving, it's not obedience training, it's a character training. So it's reminding them, incentivizing them to do the things that they're supposed to do. And by that, creating good habits and creating character development and mentality in their as they're very young still.
Yes. So this is a program. It does require some character on your part as a parent, because you have to be consistent. The whole point is that if I see something visual on the wall in their bedroom, I am going to remember, oh yes, we need to do this.
And so are they.
So they're going to get into it. Now, don't forget to give them their prizes, whatever program, whatever method you choose. Don't ignore the prizes, because there's nothing worse than disappointing a child who's expecting something and it never comes.
If you set up something for them, make sure you do your follow through.
Yes, absolutely.
It's better that you don't even set up the system if you're not going to follow through with it.
Right.
You can't promise a child something and not follow through, not give them what you've promised them. You're teaching them the opposite of character, actually. Right. So it wouldn't help you very much at all. Anyhow, the Castle Character.
Just a tool.
Just a tool that we used. Kids enjoyed it. They enjoyed the little catapults and the knights and all the castle and all the things that was up on their wall. Up on their door. And very simple, very I had to redo it.
A couple of
Semi-
times, I think.
yeah.
It kind of fell apart at times. That's okay.
But it's all a visual effect there on the door that reminds them of what they're supposed to be doing. Reminds us to not stay on top of them, but reminds us of just keep our character portion of it as well to be able to fulfill that. So just an idea for you. Hope you enjoyed, and hope you come back with us again next time for Building Families and the Faith. God bless.